Have you ever been called a band geek, a theater nerd, cyber dork, studio rat, gamer punk, orchestra dork, book monkey, drama jock, Poindexter, artsy fartsy, or just plain weird? Well then, welcome to Art Nerds. This is the podcast where we sit down with our nerdy friends, embrace our inner geek, and celebrate our art. Welcome back, my friends. This is Mike O'Brien, and this is Art Nerds. This is the podcast where we talk to our nerdy friends about their artwork. Today, I am super excited. I am at the home of my good friend Steve Connect, and he has put together a band called Union Avenue, and they are rockabilly brilliance. Introduce yourself, guys. Say hi. How are you?
My name's Christopher Myers. I'm the singer and the lead guitar player.
I am Chris Manzella and the drummer.
And I'm Steve Connect, the upright bass player.
And these guys are one of the best rockabilly trios I've ever heard in my life. How did you guys get together? I'm going to start there. I'm going to start simple. How did you guys get together?
I'll let them start their beginning and then my beginning.
Yeah, this actually started, I don't know, about 8 years ago when my friend Rob Fogler, who's a really accomplished guitar player, he and I were in several bands together, and we kept thinking we needed to get a band going, but we never quite got the fire under us to do it. And he said that he had known of a kid, at that point a kid in town here, that wanted to play rockabilly and was a good singer. Well, we never crossed paths until one night we were at a show at the Castle Theater, and it was J.D. McPherson, who, if you haven't checked J.D. McPherson out,
yeah,
you have got
Agreed.
to hear that music. And so we all three end up at this show, and about, I don't know, halfway through the show, we just all looked at each other and said, yes, it is time to do this, because we were so inspired by that J.D. McPherson show. It was just incredible. So Rob and Christopher and myself, we looked and finally found a drummer, and we just could not get it off the ground. It just wouldn't happen.
For 2 years we were together practicing, and didn't play a single gig. So.
And then in that, their summer came up, and you went over to
summer camp that I used to work at, and that took a break on, we're practicing, and then there's a 2-month break, and so that certainly didn't help with the equation of getting things going.
Right, and this was before Christopher came on as drummer.
Before Chris came on? Yeah.
That's Christopher. Chris came on as drummer.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, a long time before that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Christopher's our guitar player. Chris is our drummer.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is before Chris came on as drummer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So then Christopher moved down to Kentucky?
Yep. I moved down to Bowling Green for about a year and a half to 2 years, and then I moved back up, and finally, kind of during COVID, during the heart of COVID, started playing out again, and
He was doing single stuff.
yeah, just solo stuff.
Okay.
I had a gig at Night Shop, and it was just like a 30-minute to 45-minute set, just me solo, me and my guitar. And literally, and I don't remember if it was the same night or the next day, Steve, out of the blue, we hadn't talked since the band broke up, basically, messaged me out of the blue. And he's not on Facebook, so he had no idea what I was doing or anything. I didn't know what he was doing. It was all just meant to be, basically. It was fate,
meant to be, yeah.
Because I hadn't been playing in forever, and I finally was getting back into it. And Steve reached out to me, and he said, hey, it's Steve, are you still playing music? Because I kind of want to get something going again. And I said, yeah, actually, I literally just got done with a gig. What are we talking about here? And
that's where the seeds of this started, and that was
in August.
Last July, basically.
Or July, late July. Yeah,
basically
right.
a year ago.
Oh, really? So it's only been a year.
Oh, yeah.
Not even.
Yeah, because I can't remember. We were just coming out of COVID. Clubs were starting to open back up, and my wife Becky went on a vacation with her friends, and so I was sitting there at the house, and I was just kind of like, I was frustrated with the band that I was currently in, which was Rocky Ford Rounders, which was doing more like, folk music, you know. And it's like, okay, this is all good and fun, and I got to go play rockabilly.
I was going to say, because that sounds, for a bass player, kind of slow.
It was. It was, but it did
Well,
give
for
me the
anybody.
opportunity to work on playing and singing at the same time, which with a rhythm instrument can be really challenging.
Sure.
But I got to hone that skill over a couple of years with the Rocky Ford Rounders. But I was just like, no, I don't want to
need to be let loose.
yeah, because it was like, playing for, older people sitting in lawn chairs watching you play music, and that's okay, but it is nothing like playing in a crowded club with people just tearing the walls down because
Right.
you're just ripping it up. And I remembered all that from back in the days when I was in the upright bass player with the Bird Dogs back in the...
Oh, yeah. That was a while ago.
That was a while ago, back in the 2000s, maybe. And, we had great success, but that band just like imploded just out of a clear blue sky. So that's what I was always kind of thinking, man, I wish I could recreate that. And so that's when I reached out to Christopher, figuring that we were going to bring Rob Fogler on as guitar. And he's so busy with his life, he just really couldn't commit to it. So we talked about it, and we were like, well, let's see if we can find a drummer. And so Christopher took over trying to find a drummer for us.
And there's a Facebook group called Bloomington Normal Musicians, local musician group. Bunch of people from the local scene will post, hey, we're playing this gig. Does anybody have any recommendations? For we're looking for a guitarist, or we're looking for a drummer, or
Right.
you just a hub
Just
for
a
different questions.
nice resource
and
for
resources, yeah, exactly, in the local scene. And so I thought, well, I will post a video of me playing at Night Shop from that gig right before Steve reached out to me, and say, hey, I've got an upright bass player. I sing and play guitar. We're looking for a drummer. Anybody out there? And that's when we found this guy over here.
Actually, it was by chance because I was in another band, and I could see the writing on the wall that they were not going anywhere.
Right.
Oh, they were still using music stands on live performances. They look like third grade recitals.
Oh, in a rock and roll band, or
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And I tried to add my, I took 37 years off. So I did have a little bit of experience from back in the day, and I tried to share that. It wasn't well taken. But I was just unhappy. So I put an ad on Facebook, and it said something like, looking for a band to, play, jam, whatever. I got my own kit, got my own vehicle, all the stuff that they needed to know. And he finds me and says, hey, would you do rockabilly? I'm like, why not? But then he had seen I've got another Facebook page and a YouTube page of my covers, and I've got a monster kit at home. 24 cymbals, all this, and he's like, well, you really only need a couple drums. I'm like, that's fine. So we met July 31st last year. The following Sunday, whatever that day was August 1st. And we jammed, auditioned, and they kept looking at me because they knew I loved Bad Company and Foghat and all that.
Okay.
And they kept on saying, are you okay with this? I'm like, dude, it's fun.
Because, not everybody knows what rockabilly is. Not everybody's into it. And
Right.
that's okay. That's
That's okay.
totally fine. So we just weren't sure. We wanted to make sure that,
But they asked me
Chris
like
was
a
okay with
dozen
it.
times over 2 months,
If you're okay with slow and
Well, I can see Steve kind of like stopping and looking at me like, you sure you're okay with this music? I'm like, yeah.
Well, see, the funny little part that comes up is that Chris is originally out of St. Louis, and of course I'm originally out of Collinsville, which is right outside of St. Louis.
Right.
And he was gigging down in St. Louis area at the same time I was gigging down in St. Louis area back when I was playing in punk bands and alternative rock bands. So it's really probable, not even just possible, it's probable that we crossed paths back then.
Right.
Playing at very similar venues like
The Landing.
and like Kennedy's,
Yep.
Billy Goat Hill, all
of the-
kinds of places in South St. Louis and in the St. Louis downtown area.
Yeah.
So when we start comparing notes, it's basically like, oh yeah, I was there, and
How did we not meet?
Yeah.
And we still, to almost every practice, we always come up with something in common, whether it be Italian food on the hill or this club or that club or,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I went to high school with Steve, in case you guys didn't know.
Oh.
So, yeah.
We'll have to talk later. I'd like to hear about that.
No, you can't talk because I don't think the statute of limitations has run out on some of that stuff.
You're right. Fair point.
Yeah, we'll turn the microphones off. We'll have a good time. So between the three of you, there's a million influences here.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of musical styles, in terms of experience.
Oh, yeah.
For me, it was interesting. Now I'm here because in the day when I was 8, 9 years old, my mom and dad had stacks and stacks of 45s, Elvis, Jerry Lee, the Supremes, all the Motown, the 50s, all of it. And that's all I did forever. I would go outside and listen to my little white little record player and put on a little concert. When you were kids, you did.
Yeah.
But
as you do,
that was embedded in my brain. So then, as I grew up, I got into the 70s and 80s, and like I said,
right.
Foghat and Bad Company, and all that.
That crowd.
But that other 50s and the Motown, all that stuff was still here.
Still way back there.
Yeah, it was welded. I guess it was my initial introduction to music. It really was.
And it really shows in how Chris plays this music, because it's one of the things that we found with the Bird Dogs is that we had a hard rock drummer at that time in the Bird Dogs, and it brought such an enthusiasm that you wouldn't get with somebody that was laid back trying to play jazzy, rockabilly.
Right.
So when Chris comes in with all of his influences, but a real innate understanding of that, era of music,
right?
Just without even thinking about it, just like on autopilot, man, he just crushes it and is absolutely. I mean, I'm not trying to just blow smoke here. The best drummer that I have worked with, especially in rockabilly music.
Congratulations.
I feel honored. I will say that we do, I think it's almost an unconscious thing that we do groove together.
Because I've seen these guys play, and it's tight. It's amazing. And
it's always great as an upright bass player where you're doing percussive, but you're also playing notes, melodic notes, to not have to think about both of those things. And when you're playing with an excellent drummer like Chris, he's asked me like, hey, did you hear that? I'm like, no, I didn't. And that is what's perfect, is I don't have to think about what you're doing. I know it's right.
Right.
And so that makes it just all the
because,
better.
I mean, like I said, I grew up with a lot of the same stuff you did, Chris. My mom and dad were flower children wannabes, but we still had a lot of Jerry Lee Lewis, a lot of Elvis, a lot of that old.
My mom used to go down to Imperial Club in St. Louis.
Oh, really?
And see Ike and Tina Turner.
Wow.
True story.
That's great.
My uncle had a meat market down there, D'Angelo's Meat, back in the day, and they would deliver food to them. And I just found this out, that my Uncle Frank did not like Ike, because Uncle Frank was old school. He respected women.
Oh, and Ike had a troubled past there.
Mom just loved Elvis. When we went to Nashville, almost, there's times I would just want to cry, because it's like, I would love to tell Mom,
right.
She would love it. She would wow.
Yeah, because I kind of grew up with this style of this kind of old 50s rock and roll stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then like most people my age, the Stray Cats hit the scene. And then so that's rockabilly. I get it.
Yeah.
Then you start digging into Eddie Cochran and, the history of it and all that good stuff. Other influences, like Christopher, Steve, you're the youngest of the group.
Sure.
Yeah. Has it always been rockabilly for you?
Well, it's interesting because I'm a very old soul in many ways, not just music, but I drive a '54 Chevy.
Well, tell the Elvis story, how you got introduced to Elvis.
Yeah, so like the story is everybody's like, why do you like all this old music? You're not an old person. Like, what gives? Like, what's going on? And honestly, the short story is when I was a baby in the crib, my dad would play the oldie station. Then I would go, fall asleep to the oldie station when it was, 50s doo-wop music and rock and roll and mainly 50s stuff, a little bit of early 60s. And of course, as years went by, the oldie station gradually went to, 60s. Now it's 70s. Now it's 80s, but back then when I was a baby, it was 50s, doo-wop, rock and roll, all that. And so that was kind of ingrained in my head. And I was always listening to that music when I was getting older as a kid. And then I think maybe like my 8th birthday party, my parents were like, okay, it's going to be, your birthday. You want to do a themed birthday party? And I said, yes. And they said, well, I know you really like oldies music. You got to pick a decade. Like, are we talking 50s? Do you want a 50s party? Do you want a 60s party? And I decided I wanted to do a 50s party. And that cemented, okay, I like all of this music. I've picked the 50s. And it kind of went from there. Still didn't really know who Elvis was. The first time that I actually even knew who Elvis was, my dad was a elementary school principal, and he had a lot of fun with themed dances, and they had like a 50s themed party, dance for the kids, and he liked to dress up, and the kids liked that and had a good time. And so he had like an Elvis jumpsuit and a wig, and I remember he was putting that stuff on for this dance, and I looked at him and I'm like, what are you wearing? Like, who are you supposed to be? And he's like, I'm Elvis. And I'm like, who's Elvis? So
Who's Elvis?
And, I didn't know. And, slowly but surely, because I liked that music, found out who Elvis was. Now, I liked Elvis, but I still didn't know what rockabilly was because I'm still listening to like Hound Dog, more mainstream rock and roll.
Okay.
Elvis. Didn't know about the earlier stuff before he went national, the Sun Records era, the rockabilly era of Elvis. So digging more into Elvis, I then discovered Sun Studios, and I discovered, hey, I like blues music, like old school, like Delta blues music, because that was recorded at Sun Studios, And yeah, I do like this early Elvis stuff, and That's All Right Mama, and, Baby Let's Play House, and Mystery Train, and all that stuff, and that's rockabilly. So, okay, let me dig some more and get more into the nitty gritty of things. And so that's kind of what happened to me.
Dad dressed up as Elvis to introduce you to him.
A little bit, yeah.
to narrow it down.
Right. It all kind of went from there.
And then you just kind of fell down the rabbit hole.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. So do you play on it? Have you played anything else? Or have you just stuck to this?
Mainly, when I started playing in front of people in high school, maybe a little bit of junior high, but mainly high school. We had like a battle of the bands at the end of the year, and I would play it, like an hour set, just me solo and a guitar, and it was mainly 50s rock and roll, rockabilly stuff. So yeah, it's pretty much been just rockabilly and rock and roll stuff that I've played. I never really played like mainstream stuff. I wasn't listening to the stuff that was on the radio because I didn't like it. I was listening to the old catalogs of the older stuff. So, pretty much been rockabilly.
Okay, Steve, your influences. Because I know some of them because we went to high school together.
We did. Well, it all probably starts out the fact that my dad was a big band drummer.
That's right, he was.
For his entire life. And so it's funny now because now when we're like loading out of a show and I'm moving Chris's drums out to the trailer, I just can remember all the days where I'm moving my dad's drums into the back of the station wagon. But my dad was really into the big band music. My mom was a big fan of Ella Fitzgerald. And there was always music playing as much as possible in my parents' house. So that was, interesting music. But of course, you find your own way with your friends. So in the different bands that I've been in, we played everything from Creedence Clearwater Revival to, AC/DC, and then bands that were playing like REM. And, I went through different phases where I liked, I was crazy about the Rolling Stones when I was younger, and then that turned into liking Jimi Hendrix and a lot of the stuff that probably, Chris and I were familiar with in that era of the KSHE radio station.
Yeah.
Down in St. Louis, and their KSHE classics that they played. We still talk about a lot of that stuff. And then that morphed into more of the British New Wave invasion, stuff like the Smiths.
Okay.
And,
Right.
Clash.
The Clash, absolutely the Clash.
I remember
Ramones.
I remember one of the Police albums came out, and that's all you could talk about for like 2 weeks. So
Yeah, the Police was outrageous because as much as I liked it, and I really, was, like you said, down the rabbit hole with that, it wasn't until much later when I realized what it was that made that band so incredibly special with their rhythms and some of the ska and reggae influences. And, we didn't know at that time what ska and reggae really was until later in the, sometime in the 80s when groups like Fishbone and I can't even think of the other ones that were playing ska.
Right.
But
Keep going. I'm sorry.
But then also right about that time, it was like you said, when the Stray Cats started coming out and that music and the Romantics, and that style of music just like grabbed me by the throat and shook me, and I was like, wow, this is really, really something. And I was living with my friend Kelly Laster, who Kelly Flash Laster.
Flash Laster.
And he really, really liked the rockabilly music and had actually met a lot of the old rockabilly stars and got them to, give him autographs and stuff. And he knew, I've been playing electric bass in bands. And he's like, no, you need an upright bass. And I'm like, I'm not going to buy an upright bass. I have no interest in this. I don't even know how to carry it. And so one day he's like, get in the car. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, just get in the car. And we drove to Swing City Music in Collinsville. And he had spied in their like junk music closet an upright bass. And he's like, you need to buy that and we'll get it up and then we'll start our own little rockabilly band, kind of like the Stray Cats or whatever. And so I'm like, I don't know. He twisted my arm just right. And so I paid $200 for this beat up old bass. And had to figure out how to get strings because back then there wasn't internet.
Right.
You had to go to a music store and have them order
The
stuff.
catalog, yeah.
Our friend Sean Graves, of course, his dad had a woodworking shop in his basement, and one of the things that was missing on that bass was the end pin, which is a wooden housing with a metal pin sticking out of it that you stand the bass on. And Sean actually woodworked my first wooden end pin for that upright bass. And so got it running, and Kelly and I worked on playing, and he decided he wanted to start a little rockabilly band. And so we needed a drummer. And we found this drummer named Mike O'Brien.
Yes, I was their first drummer.
And
Nice.
I was.
and I don't even know where you got drums from.
I don't remember. I had a snare drum hanging around my house for years.
Really?
And it just happened to be in that period of time. And that's all I played on. I had a drum and I had a hi-hat that didn't work. So just basically two cymbals sitting there together. And that's what I played on.
Yeah,
And that was it.
So this is like 1988, 89, right in that time frame,
Right.
I believe. I think we all three of us probably practiced maybe twice. And then we played a open mic
One gig.
at the Stagger Inn in Edwardsville, Illinois. And I
That's
think we played 3, maybe 4 songs tops because that's all we knew. And that never happened again.
One and done.
But the funny part is that upright bass that I bought for $200 is the exact bass I play today.
It sounds better today.
It does.
You've had it fixed
Well,
or rebuilt or...
several times.
A little bit of everything.
Yeah, because the one time we were, I was playing with the Bird Dogs and we were in Springfield, and of course, we're there's a bar and a club in the basement of the Hilton Tower in Springfield,
Okay.
And we were down there playing a show, and I was just slapping the hell out of the bass like you need to do with rockabilly. And all of a sudden, I came back to slap, and the strings weren't there anymore. And the whole bass had just exploded in my hands while I was playing, and I didn't even realize it. So that bass ended up sitting for a few years. I bought one from, there was another band that we played with that night, and I bought that guy's bass to finish the show, and I kept it, and then rebuilt this one.
Wow. So do you still have that second one, or?
No, I had been in a Western swing band called the Caffeine Patrol, and it was the most frustrating music I had ever played because it's really highly technical, jazz-based, but it's also Western and it's also swing music. So trying to play that music against somebody on a pedal steel guitar that's out of tune, and there was about five of us in that band, and the rhythms was just driving me insane. So I got so frustrated when that band broke up, I sold all of my equipment, including that blonde Engelhart bass. I was just like, I'm done. I'm done with music. I'm not playing music anymore with bands. I'm so frustrated. And that lasted 6 months. And then I was just like,
Got the itch.
Got the itch.
What is it about your style of music that grips you like it does? Because you guys talk about this style of music, this period of music, rockabilly, and there's an amazing love for it, fondness for it, I don't know, affinity for it. What about it? What is it about this that...
They're going to have different answers.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm hoping.
Well, go ahead, Chris.
I don't know. I guess it's the rhythm. I think it's the fact that it's not crazy complex, but it's very it's a very bold sound, but at the same time it's not complex. I mean, it can be complex, but the way we do it, I mean, it's tight, but it's also simple at the same time. It's I don't know. I think a lot of people, like when we play out, even some of the sound people, where were we at? And we were doing sound, and the sound guy was like, your bass is making this like weird noise. I don't know. I can't figure it out.
Oh yeah,
And,
because of the slap of the bass, the tickety 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 tickety. Yeah,
and so it's like another percussion instrument.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if Steve played electric bass, completely different sound.
Oh, yeah.
Wouldn't work. I mean, it'd be okay. It's not gonna put people in seats, I don't think.
But it wouldn't have the energy.
No.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have the feel.
It's a whole nother thing.
The feel.
And
I think that's what it
the
is.
drums are very powerful, just solid, hitting that snare, consistently, driving that bass drum. And then, the guitar, I don't know. It's just, I think a lot of other genres are great. They're much more complex, which is still interesting.
Right.
And nice. But I think it's just the rawness of it. And it's not, again, it's just not complex. I don't know. It's just really raw. It's very, it's a very driving rhythm and
visceral.
beat and, wild. And I don't know. I think it makes us get into it more than just to calm down.
Yeah, it's not complex, but at the same time, you have to present that certain element, because as I'm getting back in the drums in November, it'll be 3 years back into it, and I've read every video, and some of the older drummers are telling, well, you got to do this, and if you want to do this, you got to do that, and a lot of them will just like, you've got to play basics, and they teach you the techniques and the things to hear from, and like play for the song, not play for you. If you can't dance to your music, or if you can't dance it, people aren't going to dance. Right. So it's just like the music in itself for me. I don't necessarily listen to rockabilly when I'm cruising down the road. I got my own tunes, but I love the music. So I've listened to it and I study it. So, there's a part, each of us play a part. I can't go do a bunch of fills, and I've got to be basic. And there's an art, I feel like there's an art to that, to keep it.
Not overplaying.
Yeah, steady, solid, and play the accents when they're necessary, and keep it simple, bring it down for the dynamics and the vocals. And all that, for me, it's a challenge. It's not hard, but it is a challenge,
It's actually surprisingly difficult for most drummers. And I've seen that, firsthand, because that's what Chris does really, really well, is he's got his basics on lock. And he realizes, like he and I talk about all the time, there's a music phrase called "in the pocket." And if you are a drummer and a bass player and you're in the pocket, all you're doing is you're not trying to showboat. You're holding it together. You are 100% working to keep the boat rowing. You're not up, doing anything flashy. That's for your front man to do. We're just in the pocket holding it together. And yeah, it's outrageous, because when you really study old rockabilly music from early 50s, there's a lot of debate on when it started,
Sure,
and who started it and how it started. But there's, definitely a great musical recorded evidence of it being from 52, 53, 54.
Around there.
And these guys that were playing that were really basic musicians. They didn't have a lot of training. Whereas like when the Western swing that I was talking about earlier, those were like really musically educated cats, man. And they knew their scales and arpeggios, and they had all this. Whereas the rockabilly is like, hey, I found a drum. I'm a drummer now. Hey, I got
$1, let's cut a record.
My uncle gave me this guitar. It's only got 3 strings, but I'm going to learn to play it.
Yep.
And that's where this just raw ruckus sound just came out of, because again, there's a lot of debate as to where rock and roll started versus rockabilly. It's more easy to kind of narrow that down to it's Memphis and that area,
right.
Arkansas, where Johnny Cash grew up.
Yep.
Elvis and Mississippi, that whole area, because there was such
that Delta blues influence,
the Delta blues influence,
country music influence.
Yeah, and so as you start trying to kind of stack those together, because of what was being played on the radio, on what at that time was called race stations, which were for quote unquote, colored people,
right,
back in the day. But you had all these, little sharecropper white kids that were tuning in on their little crystal radio sets and listening to this.
Dewey Phillips on WHP2 in Memphis.
Yeah. And that's where like this explosion just came about.
So would you guys consider rockabilly as kind of and I'm going to use the term folk music, in the sense that it is just people playing for their own fun? It's I know folk music has its own connotations, its own kind of appellation, kind of sensibility, but it sounds the way you're talking is that it's not so much about being a trained musician or the most accomplished musician. It's about being the most passionate musician. Or
I would say it's a little bit of both, but
is that part of it at least?
Oh, yeah.
The word I use is feel, and I'll let you take it from there.
Oh, no. I mean, he said the word, so he's got to finish the sentence, right?
I just, again, I listened to different drummers. Todd Suckerman from Styx, he's been playing with him for 15, 20 years, I don't know. And he teaches so many psychological aspects of it, and he talks about feel. And that's, to me, it's almost an underrated word in music, unless you're really seasoned. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if you play a song and it doesn't feel good, whether it's you
not right.
playing or the audience feels it, there's so many different ways. It's not right. And honestly feel like our music, when we play, there's that groove, that feel. It's simple. It's very simple, but it comes across as a good flow, a good vibe, a good
Something
feel.
deep down just
Yeah.
triggers right.
Yeah.
And like, for example, when we are practicing and we'll say, hey, we've figured out a couple new songs to do, right? We like it. There's a horn section in this song. We don't have any horns, right? There's a piano solo. We don't have a piano. So we're listening to it and we like it. We got to figure out how we're going to do it
Right.
as us. Yeah. And
And that's what happened way back in the day. I mean, if they were listening to, some of the jump blues of the day, there'd be a 5-piece horn section behind them and a guy on a piano
Right.
and a drummer and an upright player and maybe 2 or 3 guitarists. Well, how do you cover that when you've only got 3 guys in your band?
and not even the same instruments.
Yeah. And so that's what we have somehow stumbled on, because people go, oh man, your sound, for 3 guys, you make a lot of sound, but it's not just like blazing sound. It's like it works. And so we actually stood around practice a couple times and scratched our heads and go, whoa, what is our sound? Mm-hmm. What is that?
Yeah.
How do we continue to make of these other songs in that sound? And it is just, it's just passion for what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that feeling that Chris was talking about, I bring up practicing and working on new songs. What is it? 3 times, 4 times?
Yeah, I think that's our we play practice a song on average of three times.
Before we get that
Before
that
it all of a
groove
sudden is like,
down, that
as
feel.
Steve says, that's got bones.
Yeah, that's got good bones. Yeah.
But it's usually 3 to 4 times, and then it's like, oh yeah, there it is.
Oh, before
we start getting
before
into
it
before
clicks
it
in.
clicks.
The first 2, sometimes
we're figuring out what
sometimes
we're
even
playing.
the 3rd time, it's like, I don't know. And I've just noticed it in our early time, last year. Like, let's just play it 3 to 4 times. It's usually the 3rd or 4th. It clicks. And it clicks.
All of a sudden, then the arrangement's there. We each know our part.
Right.
And then we can reproduce that over and over again with that feel that just makes it just chug along.
It does go back to the feel, because initially the first 2 or 3 times we're learning individually. Like, I'm learning my part, how I interact with him and Chris.
How it all
and he's doing the
interlocks.
same. We're all doing that same thing. We're trying to make it like, how does that sound? And I'm playing, and I'm listening to Steve, and I'm listening to the vocals, but by the 4th time, all of a sudden, something just meshes.
2nd or 3rd time, we maybe figure out what we should be playing.
Yeah.
But we're all stiff because we haven't done it a lot.
Right.
So we're kind of trying to figure out, okay, is this right? And then if we figure out it is right, then again, a couple more times, then we get into it. We're more relaxed. We say, yeah, this does sound good. And we'll relax a bit. We'll blend and gel together.
Sometimes Steve or I will say, okay, let's do this with energy. And then we kick in, and that's the key.
Yeah.
A great example is there's a song by Warren Smith, Uranium Rock. Mm-hmm. And I've known this song for 30, 40 years, right? Awesome song. And we decided we wanted to do it. And it took us multiple times. We're all playing it fine, but we're just looking at each other going, why doesn't this work?
Different drum beat, a different guitar, riff, or different bass scale.
And it's because, like Christopher said earlier, on the cut by Warren Smith, there's somebody on the piano, and it very well could have been Jerry Lee Lewis doing session work at Sun Studios.
He was a session player before he was big.
Oh.
So there's back, that, and that adds a beat to it. It adds a separate bass line and a separate melody line on, underneath what they're playing on the guitars and the bass. And so we're trying to figure out, well, what do we got to do? Because I was about ready to hang that song up, because I'm just like, I don't feel it.
The first couple times I had a groove. I was doing the main groove on the toms. And I'm like, that's it. But these guys are like, I don't know.
It sounded good, but again, because we aren't playing it and we don't have all the same instruments as the record,
Right.
doesn't
But-
work in a different setting. So we got
But
to
we
figure that
actually
out.
just kind of dropped it for a while.
A little bit, yeah.
A few weeks or so. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it just, like,
I
okay,
wouldn't
let's.
give it up. I said, wait, this is a good song. We got to do this
And
song.
then we just tried it, and he goes, Christopher's like, just play it straight. I'm like, okay. And all of a sudden, it was there.
Yeah, he played the drums straight, and I changed up the bass line to actually using that slap technique to use it to fill in where that piano was. And, Chris is really great about whatever I'm doing as a slap technique on the bass, that he can like take that and process that in his mind as to how the drums should either be with it or counter to it. Because if I'm going tick, 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 and he's like on that same beat, it sounds one way. But if he's on the counter beat,
Right.
then you get a whole different feel.
Yep.
And he's just like a magician being able to pull that out.
So is that part of your sound? Is being able to translate pretty much anything into this 3-piece?
Well, I'm going to say there is a chemistry, I mean, we get along. We have situations that come up because being in a band's like a marriage, relationship.
Sure.
We have, I'll be the first to admit I'm tough to deal with at times, but we work through it. Musically, though, we just, there's a thing, that we just
If we didn't
play.
get along, the music wouldn't sound
Yeah.
as good.
Right. So I'm going to assume you get along because
Yeah.
it sounds good.
Oh, yeah, like I said,
Oh,
we've
yeah.
had situations, but we've sat down like mature men and said, hey, what's going on?
Right.
Let's deal with this.
and the fact that regardless of what it sounds like on stage, we run this band like a business, and all three of us have a say. There's no one set, I'm the manager or I'm the booking agent. We're all three constantly making decisions that affect the band as far as, advertising and where we're going to book shows at. And so that helps everybody feel like we're, 100% included in where we're going and what we're going to do.
And I'm going to assume that's vital to
Absolutely.
successful band.
Honestly, I'll be at work and I know he's at work, and I'm not sure what schedule Christopher has, but our texts are going, and it's like we practice, we play gigs, but during the day, it's almost like we have this individual business thing going. I can
Text
tell.
string.
I can tell when the bosses are his partners away because he's just texting it like crazy. But it's business,
Right.
Yeah,
He's like,
right.
oh, got an email from, and like today I was talking to a drummer from another band in Nashville. We're trying to possibly get something going, down the road, and Christopher's talking to this guy and he's talking to that guy. We're all doing something.
Right.
That is the joy of us, or whatever you want to call it, but that's why we gig so much.
We're all doing our separate
we
things
did,
to all come together and get something
7
going.
gigs last year, and I think we're like 20 already for this year.
I don't even know. It's hard to keep track,
And-
honestly.
Yeah, it's
We're
been
not
a
even-
crazy year.
Not even 1 year yet.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we just played at a major rockabilly festival down in Nashville.
That's right. Yeah. How'd that go?
It was amazing. It was amazing. It really was.
Even for me being apprehensive, I walked away. Honest to God, true story. I'm cruising home, and I'm thinking of grooves for potential original songs.
Really?
I mean, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of impact, at least for me.
Oh, that's
it was
exciting.
just insane.
Yeah, Nashville was a total
Mind blower.
mind blower, is exactly right, because we went down there and we were going to be the first band to open up the festival, which was a Friday, Saturday, and then
little
Sunday
bit of
was a
some
record
Sunday
show
stuff, yeah.
and stuff like that. But so they figure, well, we'll put you guys first, and
We're a nobody.
we're nobody, right? We get first, and we get up there, and we hit it, and you could just see everybody's like jaws drop, like, where did these guys come from? And it was really apparent the rest of the weekend that we were there, because I couldn't even walk up and lean my elbow on a bar without somebody coming up and wanting to buy us drinks, like we were like total rock stars. And people coming, oh, you should come play here, you should come play here, you need to be here, and talking to the other bands. It was so cool to be surrounded by people that
like-minded people,
rockabilly and the vintage custom culture, as it's called.
Right.
That's what it was all about. I mean, car shows and vintage clothing sellers, and the place that we played had a 50s diner and a bowling alley and a arcade, and it was just
and a complete rock club in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Backstage,
like
double-decker.
It was a converted old Kmart, this massive old
Oh,
Kmart
really?
building. They made it into a bowling alley, again, a diner.
Oh, that's
the,
cool.
The stage, all of that.
If
So
you get
it
a
was
chance
cool.
to check out East Side Bowl in Madison, Tennessee.
Yeah, it's just on the edge of, I guess technically it's Madison, but it's basically Nashville.
Yeah,
Okay.
And,
just up from the
super-
Grand Ole Opry complex up there.
Super 50s styled, decor everywhere. It's quite the thing.
And you blew them out of the water.
Well, I think
we did. We tried to anyways.
Here was the evidence came to us throughout the weekend, because when we played, it didn't look like there was a lot of people there.
There were some people in the shadows. They weren't right
there
up
was,
front.
Right.
Obviously when you're on stage, you can't see too far. But I even stayed one day, they stayed the weekend. But it was like people were coming up to us, oh, we've seen you. I'm like, where were you? And obviously there was a lot of folks, musicians, in the shadows, in the corners.
We didn't even know.
Yeah. And that's how we got, we're kind of building a relationship with,
Jane Rose and the Dead Ends.
Yeah.
Which are out on Nashville.
And the
They're-
drummer's from England, and now he's in Nashville. Great band. I personally love their sound, and we're texting and trying to get a show for them. But he came up and talked to Steve and I, and it's like, oh, you guys are tight, and that blew my mind. I mean, you could come up and say, oh, you guys sounded good, but when another drummer or another bass guitar player from an established band comes up and says, hey, you guys did good, I'm like, wow.
Yeah, Mia Lehman coming out and
That's
saying,
for me.
that's great. That's,
That's
a dime a dozen.
That was my mind blower.
That's
Yeah,
great.
the vocalist from the High Jivers,
Yep.
which I can't remember her name off the top of my head right now.
But phenomenal, just
Yeah.
bluesy,
Oh, man.
raspy, growly
Yeah.
voice.
yeah.
But
Just
she
phenomenal.
walked up to Christopher and said, what'd she say? You got good vocals or
Yeah.
something like that.
She said,
And-
you have a great voice.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
We didn't
for
even know
her
she
to-
was at our show.
For her to say that was like,
That's
the
awesome.
heavens opened up and the sun rays came
Yes,
down.
absolutely.
I mean,
And Christopher's smiling from ear to ear right now,
Yes.
just for a visual
And-
reference.
Yes.
we're not trying to, make our heads so big, but it is so flattering, and, to hear solid comments from solid people. I mean, even DJ
Del Villarreal.
he had played us some songs prior to the show, and then afterwards, and I think he said a couple different shows at very high, praise.
Yeah,
And
that's
like,
on Rockabilly Radio, which you can find on any of the web radio casts.
Okay.
Yeah. So it just, confirmed that, wow, we've got something.
Yeah.
We're doing something right,
Yeah.
because we're getting too many of the right people saying nice things about us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, we're not trying to get our heads so big, but at the same time,
We're trying to expand our audience and get into the scene.
It's it's encouraging to hear that, saying, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
And,
Absolutely. Yeah, that's
trying to keep our humility, being humble. That's hard. Because I even told the guys, it's like, man, when I got back that Saturday or Sunday, it's like, it is so easy for my head to blow up and think I'm a rock star. Because just the whole, the magnitude of Nashville and the people.
Right.
So you just got to bring yourself in, take the compliments, and say, okay, like I said, we're on the right page. We're doing something right. Let's do
And
this.
We got to record a couple videos with a guy from Bopflix.
Yeah.
Which those are going to be edited and released at some point.
Yeah, within the next year. I mean, so his name's Chris, and he's from Bopflix. It's a one-man show. He goes to all of these big rockabilly music festivals all throughout the world.
He's from the UK.
He's
right?
from the UK.
Yeah.
Goes to Spain. Goes to Vegas, Nashville. Europe, all of these different rockabilly festivals, and he will film all of these different bands, whether it's in their hotel room, real stripped down, or a hotel hallway, or out in a field, just different random, not necessarily like a performance on a stage, but just different
like improv
atmospheres and just more stripped down. One take, which is amazing. Say he starts a close up of a snare drum, doing a roll, and it slowly pans out, and then it zooms in on the vocalist, and then it goes to the guitar solo, and it's all one take. So it's visually, it's very very nice. Versus jump cuts.
He's got it. He's got it down to a science.
He's got it down.
Yeah,
and so we did
2 songs,
and one hit, boom. It's like one take.
Yeah.
Okay, it's in the can.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah, that was awesome. Next. We
Basically.
got to do it again?
It's like a yearbook photographer.
Yeah, pretty much. Excellent. So we're excited to see that come up, and we're just trying to figure out how to keep moving forward, because the people that come out to see us, we have to keep them happy, and we really, really want to. So it's like, what do they like? What do they don't like?
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about actual performing, because you kind of started touching on it about responding to the audience and that, having the audience respond back. Do you guys enjoy the performance aspect of it?
Is that a question? Of course.
You all giggled at the same
course.
time, so something's going on.
My story is, I remember some of the antics that I used to do back in the day, and it was just like, we used to play Stray Cats, Rock This Town, and I would stand up, pull my ride cymbal out, my snare, and just stand up and play it. No kick drum.
Right.
So it was kind of like those theatrics. So after the first couple shows, that started coming back. And then I've told these guys a million times, it's like, man, I'm tired, but don't worry about it. As soon as I get to the stage, I'm going to be fired. So I get up there and boom.
Energy.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the worst day on the stage is definitely better than the best day at work. It's outrageous what it does to you, because it's not like, for me, it's not like, look at me, I'm a bass player. It's like, I get to be a bass player for you people, and I appreciate that, and I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to give you 100%.
We just have fun on stage with each other, with the audience, just trying to let loose and not be too uptight. And, I need to work a little bit more. I think I'm getting better, but, I want to, it's both musically, like audibly, a show, but also, they came to see you visually.
Right.
And so you want to put on a show visually for them. So I'm trying to get more loose and get more animated and into it for the, for the audience members. And so I think I'm getting there, but
Yeah, it's like my
Once we
dad.
get into it.
My dad always told me that, because he, like I said, was a big band drummer for so many years, and he just always drilled it into my head. When the audience comes, they're coming. He'd say they're coming for dinner and a show. They want to see the band having fun as much as they want to hear the band playing good music.
Yeah.
It's not just one or the other. If you're up there and you're just being a total technician and you're not moving around, but your music you're playing is perfect, you're not going to get people fired up. But if you're jumping around on the stage and you're jiving with your fellow bandmates up there and you're shouting and carrying on, and that's rockabilly is awesome for that.
Yeah.
But that's what people like. That gets their attention. It's like, what are these fools doing?
I'm going to sit and watch.
Well, and recently we've had the added excitement that the Champaign-Urbana Swing Dance Society has been coming to our shows and piling up right next to the stage there and swing dancing. And man, you get a bunch of dancers up in front of the stage. You want to play hard.
Yep. I mean, it really does. That's a whole other added element.
Oh, yeah.
For the audience members to get into it more, because they're seeing all these people swing dance to this music. But for us, it's more fuel to our fire, I think.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
we want to, we want to, even just boost our energy more for them to get into it. And we feed off of each other, I think.
And they have a good tendency to go try and grab people from the audience and bring them out to swing dance with them.
Yeah.
Now that's an event. That's just nice.
Yeah, it is. It is. We really appreciate them coming out, because that just turbocharges the whole show.
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, last few questions here. This could be a rapid fire round, however you want to do it. What about your art turns you on?
I don't know.
Everybody looks at each other.
That's deep. I fell in.
Yeah, that's a deep question. For me, to be able to, to perform correctly, to perform as an entertainer, and have all the elements, that's like the icing on the cake. When it all comes together. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's that spark when it all. Boom.
Yeah.
Everybody in the room is in the exact same point.
Yeah.
Exact same point in time and space.
Part of entertaining is knowing your chops and everything, knowing your music. Once you know that, you can just close your eyes and play it. Then you can start getting goofy and dancing and just, and then it's just, then you're entertaining and providing music. Yeah. So
I would say for me, just, again, we have fun. We certainly have fun at practice, but to play in front of people is what makes me really happy. To see other people happy and engaged from what we are creating.
Absolutely.
Is very rewarding.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. Plus, it's always seemed to me that, and you can probably chime in on this as far as all the artists that you've dealt with, many artists live a very frustrated existence because they never think that their audience for their art gets it fully, and they and it kind of leads to an insanity which is like, why don't you people understand this, and why don't you like this more, and don't you understand what I'm putting out here in front of you? Whereas what we're doing, it's 100% evident that they like it, and they may not understand rockabilly, but they really understand what we're doing. And that's why they come back.
We're not going to cut our ear off because we're frustrated.
But they get the feel.
Yeah.
Your audience gets the feel, as you were talking. Okay, next question. What about your art turns you off?
It's not really the art part as much as just, leaving a club at 2 a.m. and having to load a trailer full of equipment
I second that.
Drive home and, like Nashville.
Yeah.
We went down to Nashville for the weekend. It probably cost me about $1,200, and we got paid about $100 each. Okay.
Yeah. It's not about the money.
It's not about the money.
Clearly.
But that's probably the worst part of being a musician. The physical part.
The physical labor, especially when you've got big bass guitars or drums.
Tear down.
Yeah, lights, PA. If we have to play a show where we've got lights, PA system, the drums, the upright, everything, we got to get to the gig sometimes 3 hours early.
Sure, absolutely.
And we'll be there 3 hours after everybody's gone.
Right.
Yep. Nope. I think that's universal for any artist who does gig work like you guys do.
Yeah.
It's, the performing, the show, magic. Everything else surrounding it is such a drudge.
But, the bright side, going back to the first question, like in sales, when I sell a job for my business, I get a rush. I get a little high because I'm like, and it's just, we were talking about this the other day. When we sell a performance or a show, there's like, oh, yeah, we did it again. And we haven't even played the show, but we've got that little buzz as like, boys, we're playing
another
this.
gig.
There's the anticipation of things like that is also exciting.
There's a sense of, I guess, prestige, if you will, to say, hey, we're playing Nashville or we're playing Game Day or whatever the venue is. Just because it's just cool. You know, that's the cool part about playing music. And it's you get a big head for a minute and you're like, oh yeah, we're playing this club.
Yeah, but then we played at Gill Street, and it was an outdoor gig.
Yeah.
Would have been packed, but the weather was horrible.
It was 50 degrees and raining.
and windy.
Windy. And we played all night for probably 4 or 5 people sitting at the bar. And
But we still had fun.
we had a great time because at that point, it's basically like,
It's practice.
well,
We actually
Right.
did do some free jamming. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was basically Steve and his family and 1 or 2 other people. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, when I was with Doc Rogers and the Rock Dodgers, which was kind of a Southern country music and, some old folk tunes like John Prine stuff. When I was with them one time, we played up in Secor, Illinois, underneath a big army tent for like a 4th of July festival. And it was approximately 100 degrees inside the tent. And so everybody was in the bar next to the tent. And we had to play a 3-hour show. And there was 2 people that sat right up front. And they were the only people in the tent besides us.
Oh.
And at the end of the night, one of the guys stood up with his wife, and he stood up. He set $20 on the stage, and he said, "Best darn music we've had here in years." And they wandered off down the street, and we're just like sweaty, and nobody heard us.
2 people.
2 people. But you play your heart out.
Yeah,
You play your
no
heart out
matter
if it's
what.
2 or 2,000.
They're not all going to be sold out.
Yeah.
You still have fun. Give it your all every time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Often thought about, if we ever retired or get the lottery, I think me and my brother, because he's in construction, and we would get a shop and we would build things we wanted. Not like what everybody else wanted. We would build the stuff we want to build. And that would be fun because there would be no pressure, no timeline. We'd just show up, work.
Just freedom to do whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's heaven.
I love my cabinet shop, but there is pressure. There's
It is a
response.
business,
It's a
yeah.
business.
Yeah.
Straight up, it's a business.
Sure.
So, but yeah, I used to have the passion that I have here 20 years ago, but like I said, I still love it. It'll keep going. It's kind of feeding itself, but the passion. I get up and I'm thinking, how soon can I get done with work so I can go play music? Honest to God.
You guys feel the same way?
Yeah, I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I look forward to our practices. I really do.
Yeah.
And we don't skimp out on practices. I mean, I don't know how frequent other bands have practices, but we practice at least once a week, if not twice a week.
Usually,
consistently.
twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least 3 hours at a time.
Yeah.
And we're constantly talking, sending videos back and forth. Hey, what about this song? What about this song?
Yep.
Because we really researched the obscure rockabilly stuff that was never released but is now on YouTube. It's by somebody from Europe that somehow got a whole treasure trove of stuff that was brought over. It's incredible how much stuff's out there right now. So we're always trying to share that back and forth.
Here's an interesting something that hit me. Have you guys ever rejected a song?
Oh yeah.
As terms of
Sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We have.
There's a lot of stuff that we would like to play that we can't play because it's so guitar heavy.
Real intricate lead work.
guitar heavy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Without a 4th person to do that guitar work, we just can't do it. And there's a lot of songs we would love to do because the rockabilly catalog is immense once you dig into it. But we just can't.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, one last question. Where can we experience your artwork?
Well, we are on Facebook. We post both our videos from our performances as well as our next upcoming show dates on our Facebook page. It's Union Avenue. If you just search Union Avenue Rockabilly on Facebook, you can find it there.
I will put links in the descriptors.
Yep.
Awesome.
We're also on YouTube. Again, if you search Union Avenue Rockabilly, we're on YouTube. We're on Instagram as well.
Okay.
Our handle is Union Avenue Band.
Okay.
We've got upcoming show. I don't know when this will air, but we've got plenty of upcoming shows
Okay.
that you can see on our Facebook page because
Okay.
Yeah, we Chris or I do events, and so usually at least a week in advance.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, this
Facebook event.
but yeah, we're booked up to, well, we've got almost 2 gigs a month.
Yeah,
So
2 or 3 gigs, and we try and split them between, if at all possible, one in Bloomington and one somewhere outside of Bloomington, so that we're not constantly just barraging the people of
just
Bloomington.
not just a local band.
Right.
We don't want to saturate the
Yeah.
Bloomington normal scene.
Yeah, we've got a show coming up in Springfield. We're going to try and get back down to Champaign-Urbana area. We really enjoyed playing at the Rose Bowl.
Rose Bowl. Yeah.
We had a good time there.
Yep.
and we're doing the Make Music Normal, the Parks and Rec thing this Friday, but then the following Tuesday we had an opportunity to open up for Wayne Hancock in Bloomington. So we're
Wow.
we're doing that.
We're
So
excited to
that was one of
do
those.
that.
Yeah, I don't care if we just played last night. We're still doing it
Right.
Yeah.
And that'll be our first time opening up
for a national
for a
act.
band or
For
for
a
anybody.
national act, yeah.
But yeah, a national act, and so people are gonna come.
So one more step in
Right.
in then the big picture.
People are gonna come to see him, and then subsequently they'll discover that we're pretty good too.
Yeah,
So-
we hope.
It's a lot of credibility when we're doing that. We're doing Nashville.
Sure.
We're doing our consistent gigs. You know, I mean, it's
Just
great
pushing.
if you're playing here or there, but when outside people say, "Oh, wow, you guys are playing a lot," you know, and you know, you can't keep playing if you don't sound good,
Right.
you know. And again, I'm not trying to get a big head, but you know, we practice hard, you know.
But it's exciting that
Yeah.
you guys that the success you guys have
Yeah,
It
have
is.
garnered in a year's time is
Hard to believe.
Yeah,
we're
it is
very
hard to
grateful.
believe. I've never been in a band that's moved this quickly.
I wanted to say earlier, I think a lot of that too, because both me and Steve are business owners, you know, and Chris has got his own little niche in the group. So I think between the three of us, there's like 3 major forces coming together. You know, I've been around. He knows a lot more people than I do. But, you know, we pull our resources, and it's like, oh, we know this guy that knows that guy, call him. And same thing here. He's done some shows at some of the clubs, so he's got that influence. So
Right.
between the 3 of us, it's just a no-brainer, you know, why we're not here, or why we're here, you know.
right.
So
And a little secret surprise that your listeners will know about that the rest of our fans don't know about is July 9th, we're headed to a professional recording studio up near Chicago to start cutting tracks to either make a CD or possibly a vinyl 45.
A vinyl 40, something you can sell at the shows. huh?
Absolutely.
Because it is,
That's great.
it's correct for the
For the scene.
genre.
for the genre.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great. So, like in a week, 2 weeks, you're heading
Yeah.
up there.
It's coming up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the time this hits the airway, you will have done this. You probably will have done it.
Yeah. So we're going to go up there. We're going to record. Right now, we believe what we're going to do is we're going to record and do the 45 and then have to go up for another recording sessions to fill out a full CD and then release those. Yeah, we're excited about it.
That is exciting.
And it's the place that we're recording at has a lot of actual vintage equipment, both microphones and actual like sound mixing and tape decks from the 50s. A lot of the same models and microphones that they used at Sun
so
Studios.
you're going to go full scale
to
time
tape.
warp kind of
Oh,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We're
We
going
actually-
on analog tape and the
We
whole
actually
thing.
had talked about going to Memphis and recording at Sun Studios. But the price of that, for where we're at right now,
that can wait.
that can wait.
Maybe next year.
Right.
Maybe next year.
Exactly.
But that is a real opportunity because they after the tours are over during the day, they record it in there all night long, and so
Wow.
we could do an album of covers of unreleased Sun music at Sun Studios and release that either on vinyl or maybe on CD as well. And then of course the whole thing with vinyl is that you also get to give your the fans that buy the vinyl get download codes so they can get digital off.
Oh,
off the
so they can
internet.
have the.
They get the vinyl, and they can pull digital.
A little code with like a QR.
Yeah, a little QR code.
Download the link, for the MP3 file.
Welcome to the modern age, I guess.
Right, best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Because it's when you're trying to figure out how to get your music out there for your fans. Everybody says, well, CDs are dead. Well, what do you sell at the shows?
But I think the Wax 45 is genius with the QR code.
Oh yeah.
That's brilliant.
So
That's super cool.
That's how
That's
we try
exciting.
and get our art out there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, we will definitely highlight
wax.
this.
And when we were in Nashville, we had a merch table, but Steve was saying that a lot of folks were kind of like looking around because they didn't see the
music.
Music.
the vinyl.
We had
weren't
t-shirts and
Or
stuff, but
yeah,
they wanted the music.
They wanted the
or
music,
vinyl,
yeah.
So that was a good indication. Like, yeah, we probably should do this.
Yeah.
I was thinking before this interview started, I'm like, I don't think we're nerds. And now after talking and listening,
We're nerds.
we're nerds, man.
You are complete art nerds, and
No shame.
thank you. No shame in it. That's part of my podcast mission. Let's bring the art to the world and be proud of who we are and the geeks that we are.
Oh yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you very,
You're welcome.
very much
Thank
for
you.
tonight. I had a great time.
Awesome.
So yeah,
did too.
And we will, like I said, I'll put the links down in the descriptors. They can find you on Facebook and Instagram and what was the other one? YouTube. Yeah, go to YouTube. Listen to these guys. They're amazing.
Or we could,
Or they can come to your house.
well, they could.
Absolutely.
Or we could send you a digital. You could stick on the backside of your podcast.
Send me a digital, and I will put it in the intro over the under the voiceover.
Yeah.
Instead of my regular one, but I'll put it on in.
We've got 4 or 5, don't we? At least.
Yeah, we got some stuff we could send you.
Yeah, please do. But I'll put it in there. So yeah, thank you guys very much, and more power to you.
Come see us.
Come see them. Go see them. Thanks for hanging around and geeking out with us. If you enjoyed the show, hit the like and subscribe buttons. And more importantly, join the conversation and leave us a message or comment. We'd love to hear about your nerdy art. Thanks again, and join us next week for more Art Nerds.
Who you been loving since I've been gone? A long time man with a red hood on. Good for nothing, baby, why you doing me wrong? Who you been loving since I've been gone? Who you been loving since I've been gone? Who's been fooling around with you with a real cool cat with eyes of blue? Good for nothing, baby, why being true? Who's been fooling around with you? Who's been fooling around with you? Somebody saw you in the brigandine, down a hand dancing in the cabaret. He was long and tall, ready to cash. He had a red Cadillac and a black mustache. He held her head and he sang you a song with who you been loving since I've been gone. Oh, who you been loving since I've been gone. Who you been loving since I've been gone? A long time man with a red coat on. Good for nothing, baby, why you doing me wrong? Who you been loving since I've been gone? Who you been loving since I've been gone? Somebody saw you in the brigandine, tying a hand and dancing in the cabaret. He was long and tall and ready to catch. He had a red Cadillac and a big mustache. He held her head and sang